What is up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got André from Cryptex. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Hey.
It's so awesome to have you here. The newest album is Once Upon a Time, which is scheduled to come out a week from today on May 8th. Do you just want to talk about how the making of this record was and the recording and all that fun stuff?
All right. Yeah, sure. So it was really a great thing to be able to do this album now. So our last release is like 5 years ago. From now, the album Medlin Effect. And it took a while because we also toured a lot and there were different things happening also, and we did this and this. But we all had in mind that we want to do a third album, what also contributes more ideas of each member. So before, it was like solely composed by the lead singer, the previous records, and now it's a bit different because it's more a band album this time, and everybody contributed his ideas, and I also started to write and compose music with the singer together. I think we did about 6 tracks on this album together, and that made a really great deal for us. And also we had the chance to get even more influences of each member to this record, and it's a bit more guitar in it. It's a bit more rock in it also, and we're quite happy how it turned out.
Yeah, you mentioned it was 5 years since the making of the last album, and you talked about how things were done differently. So this doesn't just feel like a continuation, right? This almost has to be a new start in a way.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely feels like that. Also, we signed a record deal with a great company. We always knew it for several years in Steamhammer, and that was a really great opportunity for us to be able to have this record company who supports this music.
Yeah, they're great, right? They have such a diverse catalog too.
Definitely, and I also have got some records here from Motorhead and Judas Priest, where we're also done with Steamhammer, and that's a great feeling to be able to work with this great company, and this I think 30 or 35 years in existence to do a collaboration with them.
Yeah, and they also did the last Typo Negative record. You can't forget that.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a great one.
Yep. I've noticed with this particular album, like what I really enjoyed about it is really like it almost seemed like every song had a different emotion behind it. Like I thought the title track "Once Upon a Time" was very different from a song like "Haunted," and that's very different from a song like "I See It in Your Eyes" or something like that. So, is it fair to say that many different emotions were felt during the making of this album?
Yeah, definitely. So we were all like in different emotions at the time we wrote these songs, and when we did Once Upon a Time, basically, we thought, okay, we started with the piano section and the intro and some also orchestral string sounds, and we said, hey, that sounds kind of introductional. This could be the title track of the album, because we had the title in mind for several months. We knew that it's going to be Once Upon a Time. We liked this kind of title, like a fairy tale. It's not a real fairy tale, but we liked the vibe of the sound, like Once Upon a Time, and so that track came together quite quickly, and we tried to combine different aspects, like also a big core arrangements, like the old Queen music, and we also tried to have like big guitars and to combine it all together.
Yeah, and being that the final track is called "Leaving," it almost seems like that there is like a linear narrative behind the album.
Yeah, it's almost, I think. We also had like a few snippets before written. And Leaving was like some collage kind of thing. It's not a real song. It's more like, also when you hear the track before, A Morning, it's like a transition. And we thought, okay, it's a great ending. It's different, and it has got really depth in it, and also almost like yeah, like just spoken words, and it's really different to what we've done before.
Yeah, and I mean, being that there is kind of like somewhat, you mentioned it's not like the major thing of this album, but like being that it has sort of like a fairy tale aspect behind it. Do you recommend that a listener starts off with Once Upon a Time and ends with Leaving, or could a listener like maybe listen to this on shuffle or something and approach it from different angles?
I think, of course, they can also just skip to other songs as well, or start with the middle of the album. But in total, I think the way we designed the track listening, I think it's the best to listen it when you start with Once Upon a Time, and then you get to the other songs. In the middle, it's more a proggy side of it also, in the other tracks. And Haunted is like the more hard rock sound. The ballad here, I See It in Your Eyes, it's more like a West Side Story kind of vibe. And so the closure with Leaving, it really makes sense to listen it in that track line.
Yeah, it seems like you guys are taking inspiration from many different sources for this album.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because, oh yeah, go on.
No, you were saying?
All right, so we all have different influences. So the lead singer really admires the Beatles and Queen and all these old bands especially, but also some modern bands. And I'm really much into hard rock and also metal, like Iron Maiden and Deep Purple, and these old school hard rock and metal bands. And Mark, who's the bass player of the band, he's really into the modern proggy prog metal, prog rock also, or also Genesis and these kind of proggy bands. And so we collaborated everything together to get this sound.
That's awesome. And like when I hear you mentioned like Iron Maiden, because when I hear your guitar soloing, I actually hear like Adrian Smith and some Dave Murray in there. And
awesome, that's great.
Yeah, but
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Of course. When it comes to, do you actually? I love talking to guitar players about this, but do you have like a background in theory, like what scale or chord that you're working off of, or do you tend to improvise to come up with solos in a way?
So. Ever since I was a musician, I just hear and learned everything by ears, and just did what I had in my head and improvise and stuff. But I was also interested in the things that I really wanted to know what I'm doing, to have also more control over it. And I started also to study music here. In Germany, so I started music, so it's 2 years ago, and that was a great time. And during that time, I really had to learn everything. So I had to learn the scales, I had to learn this and this and this, and that was also quite tough, because in some aspects it's interesting to know it, but sometimes I just want to play and let the feel go, and but all the time when I'm making music, I just try to focus on the song and not to think what I'm playing. Sometimes I know it, but sometimes it can be anything. So
yeah, well, I've talked to like guitar players before who like know theory like left and right, like it's a second language to them. But like they even say that when they're writing solos or even just writing songs in general, it's not really like they're thinking about it too much.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also important because when you want to have a feel in the song or in the solo, I think it can be an obstacle to think too much what you're doing. So we just tried to let the music speak.
Yeah, and being that you guys have all different inspirations, as you were talking, I was like thinking, so it's like Freddie Mercury playing with Adrian Smith and Mike Portnoy or something like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. That sounds good.
Yeah, or Neil Peart, may he rest in peace.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think here the drummer who did the drums on the album is really for me is my favorite drummer, which I played so far in my band development. Simon Schroeder. He was also an active band member of Cryptex over the last couple of years, but he also wanted to do his own things. So we thought, okay, We are a three-piece band now, but he is the drummer we always want to work with if he's available, and he will also play shows with us if we can tour again. And but we knew from the starting point that he will be the guy who also take the drum department for the record. Did a great job, definitely, and so it made a great deal overall.
Yeah. One thing I was curious about is because, like, being that you all have different inspirations, is there kind of like a formula or a certain sound that Cryptex always tries to achieve with every album, or do you like to experiment with your sound a little bit more and take a new approach to everything?
I think it's both. We try to experiment also, and we also have some ideas for the next record, even now at the moment. And I think we're going to experiment also for the next albums. But we try to bear in mind that we have this concept of Cryptex, which has now been said over the last records. Also, Simon has got a unique voice. And it's special. I mean, it's also there are some guys who say, "Oh, it's great, but the voice is it's good, but it's too much." But then there are the other ones, and they really love. So it's like a polarizing kind of thing, and we try to do both to stay to our influences and to have this cryptic sound, but to experiment also in the future with it to add even more.
Yeah. You mentioned that there's kind of like a concept revolving around Cryptex in a way.
Yeah, I think so too, because we have some kind of because we are it's at sometimes we just know what we want to do, and we don't want to do too much compromises in terms of structuring the songs. And we know, of course, we could do it that way or we could do it that way, but we just stay to our thing and just to push it and to get this sound.
Yeah. So you mentioned, can the concept itself almost obviously determine the outcome of the music?
Yeah, definitely. So I think we try to achieve this.
Yeah. You ready for the most difficult question of the whole interview? I stumble everybody with it.
Yeah.
No, because you have a song like A Morning that's a minute and a half long, but then you have a song like Haunted that's, just a little bit over 4 minutes, and then you have a song like Blood Moon that's 5 minutes. How do you know when a song is done?
Oh, that's a good question. I think sometimes we just feel like when we're doing shorter songs, like, I mean, A Morning is for me is more like a kind of interlude between different things, and Simon did it just at the spot, and we added some other parts in it. But like Haunted was a song where we knew, okay, I've got this idea, and Simon says, I've got also this idea, and then the bass player, I've got this at the moment, and so it became more and more and more, and it was even longer before. I think it was over 5 minutes, but we cut it a bit because after listening again, we felt, okay, it's a bit too much, so we stretched it down a bit. But normally it works so great that we know, okay, now this song is done, and now we don't add any more, and we always try to think song-wise to deliver the best result.
Yeah. You ever worried though, like the original way that the song was written is going to be a B-side one day, and it's be the biggest hit you guys ever had?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, this could happen, of course, and sometimes we also had like first version of this or this track, and then I listened to the final version and thought, I mean, yeah, it's great, but wasn't the first version the best of it? But then I listen over and over again, and then I think, okay, now it's great, and we just leave it as it is, and the public can decide.
Yeah, I think really what if there's anything harder than starting a song, it almost has to be harder to finish one, right?
Definitely. I think the ending part of the songwriting is, I think, very underrated because, of course, it's easy to have a start point of the song, but to get to the whole song that makes sense till the end, sometimes it's really hard to get a great ending. And of
Yeah.
course, I think every songwriter did wrote a song. I could guess where you say, okay, the song is great, but the ending is shit.
Yeah. Do you know how many
So
times that's like ruined albums, I feel like?
I think I think quite a lot. I think which I really don't like, and we definitely try to not do this kind of thing, is to have a fade out song. I hate fade out songs, and I always think like, oh man, this is so great, and why you just have this fade out? I mean, it's just that ending, which is no real ending for me.
I think maybe I think it's the default way to end something. We can't figure out how to end this, so just repeat the riff over and over and over again, and lower the volume
Yeah.
each time you copy and paste it into Pro Tools.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. But I'm thinking of what you are going to do if you play it live. I mean, of course, the sound guy cannot do the fade out on the mixing desk.
That's easy. The guitar player has to, with every time he plays the riff, he has to walk out farther and farther from the venue with his
Yeah,
amp.
that's great.
Yep.
Yeah,
By
that's
the
a
time
great
the
solution.
song's over, he's across the street from the venue, and then has to
All
run
right,
back for the next song.
that's great. I would think about that.
Yeah. So maybe you could write a fade out song, and you could attempt that one day.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, but like I think really because when you start a song, there's multiple directions that you can go, but when you end it, there's like only one or two ways to do it. So maybe
Yeah,
that's what makes the
definitely.
ending so hard.
Yeah, and we had one discussion about ending of one of the songs. Let me just think. It's so funny because we listen to the songs so many times, and when I'm talking about the songs, sometimes I just forget the titles.
Was it Reptiles?
Yeah, it was Reptiles. Thank you.
Because that's the longest one on the album. So I was curious if maybe
Yeah,
that.
definitely. I think it's also the most progressive song, and we also wanted to achieve this kind of progressive side and fast track also with different aspects, also with a guitar solo in it and some wild riffing also. But I also did really unsenseful guitar solo at the end, which is of course not on the record, which at first I thought, no, it's great, but all the others said, no, it's shit. And so I said to them, okay, you're right, so we just leave it, because there was, at the last riff section of the track, nearly at the end, I just shredded all the, on the fretboard below the riffing, which was the main part, and that was just nonsense, but I found it funny, and I said, hey, that would be funny. I mean, the people will not understand why we are doing this, and that would be great. But everybody said, no, that would be not great, and so just leave it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you always like have a preconceived idea of what you want something to sound like, or is there kind of like a lot of improvising going involved with you?
I think also both. I mean, for me, it's important to have this improvising aspect, because also when we are on stage, of course, we try to perform the song as close as the original is as we can. But of course, it depends on the energy in the audience also, that we also improvise some sections or add spontaneously some things when we play it live. But now when we're in the studio, we're really straight to really think about the song also with the guitar solos. And yeah, normally I love to improvise, but when I'm writing a song, and also I know, okay, there will be a guitar solo, I try not to think like a guitar player, because we all know this when we're just up to it and we play way too many notes. And so when I had like the thing to play guitar solo on one of our tracks, I really try to think like more of a composer. Also like Adrian Smith does it when he plays solo. He also tries to compose a solo within a song, and that is also a thing I try to do on this record.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's some guitar players. I'm not going to mention names, but I mean, I think there's some very well-known guitar players who are almost getting paid by the note in each solo. Because,
I think there are several, yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, look, I could appreciate a 7.5 minute long solo as long as it fits within the whole 10-minute song. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sometimes it's also great to have it. I mean, to have a fast and great epic solo, but sometimes it just doesn't fit. So sometimes it has to be less notes to have more feeling within the song, like, for instance, more of a Pink Floyd kind of vibe. With guitar style and sound, and so we thought about going more into these directions.
Yeah, well, I heard playing a slower song is sometimes more difficult than playing a fast song, because when you're playing a slow song, you're pretty much naked. If you slightly botch a note, half a step down, the audience is going to hear it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, even if you think the audience will not recognize it, they will.
Yep.
Because perhaps they don't understand what is happening, but they are thinking, hey, that sounds strange. So.
Especially if you have a prog audience. I mean, I think when I'm at a progressive metal concert, people are looking at the pedal board more than they're looking at the actual band.
Yeah, that's quite tough. So.
Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Is there just
thank you very much as well. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Is there just anything else with Cryptex you would like to promote? Once Upon a Time is coming out May 8th. I mean, obviously, because of a virus that shall not be named, I don't want to give it any promotion. Is there can we be expecting to see you on the road? Can you maybe be coming to the States one day?
That would be definitely a dream of us to be able to perform this album as much as possible in terms of live concerts, and we really hope that we can play in the States at some point of the future.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody. André of Cryptex, Once Upon a Time, out on SPV, May 8th. Pick it up then, and we'll see you next time on Heavy New York.